I didn't want to do another football-related gripe so soon after my Got Caught Cheating, Go to Court to Cheat podcast. However, something else in relation to the beautiful game has got my back up and has to be called out. My issue centres around the near monthly instalments of racism in football. We're getting the same tripe delivered every single year, and it's not showing any signs of changing anytime soon. Let's go. For the passive non-minorities out there, you may be thinking I'm being a little hyperbolic. However, bear with me. Let me put some context on this with a very, very shortish history lesson. The first black professional footballer in England is believed to have been Arthur Wharton. On the 30th of October 1886, Arthur Wharton made his debut for Preston North End in an FA Cup game away to Queen's Park. Preston reached the semi-finals that season with Arthur playing in goal. On the 25th of December 1901, while playing for Aston Villa, Willie Clark became the first black player to score a goal in the Football League. On the 1st of September 1909, Walter Tull became the first black player to play for Tottenham Hotspur. On the 24th of October 1925, Jack Leslie was the first black player to be picked to play for England. However, Jack was dropped when they realised that he was black. Now, Jack himself stated, "I suppose it was like finding out that I was foreign." On the 5th of December 1931, Eddie Parish became the first black full international when he was called up for Wales, the country of his birth, in a match against Northern Ireland in Belfast. Eddie was the first black player at Bournemouth, Luton Town and Cheltenham Town, as well as being Northampton Town's first black player in the Football League. In 1945, there was also players like Tommy Best of Cardiff City and Queen's Park Rangers, Albert Payne of Tranmere Rovers, Roy Brown of Stoke City, and Tony Collins, Watford, Norwich and Crystal Palace. There was also Steve Stacey, who played for Bristol City, Wrexham and Ipswich Town in 1968, Charlton Athletic in 1970 and Exeter City in 1971. On the 21st of June 1948, the Empire Windrush arrived at Tilbury Dock near London. The very next day, on the 22nd of June, the 1,027 passengers on the passenger list disembarked. While there was already black communities in Britain at this time, this is seen as a reference point regarding the influx of black people in Britain, adding even more context. In September 1960, the aforementioned Tony Collins became the first black manager of an English Football League club when he took over the reins at Rochdale. On the 14th of May 1966, Everton's Mike Trebilcock became the first black player to score in an FA Cup final. He enjoyed it so much, he scored twice. On the 1st of April 1972, West Ham United became the first team to have 3 black players on the pitch at the same time, with Clyde Best, Addy Coker and Clive Charles. All 3 playing in the 2-0 win over Tottenham Hotspur at Upton Park, Coker scoring one of West Ham's goals. On the 29th of November 1978, Viv Anderson, who played for Nottingham Forest at the time, became England's first black full international when he played against Czechoslovakia at Wembley in a friendly. However, it was Laurie Cunningham that was the first black player to appear in a competitive England international for the senior side against Wales on the 23rd of May 1979. In 1983, John Barnes made his England debut. In that time when Barnes was playing, he was subjected to one of the most racially scarring nights I can remember as a child. On the flight back home from South America with the England party in 1984, on arriving back at the airport, a group from the far-right fascist political party, the National Front, racially abused Barnes. Now, strangely, this was just days after Barnes scored a wonder goal in a 2-0 victory over Brazil. So you see, the hatred runs deep. Now, I'm running through this timeline to pay homage to these pioneers of British football, but also to make people aware of just how long mainly black people, but not discounting other people of colour, have been involved in their quest to earn the right to play professional football. Now, you'll notice my timeline started in 1886. That's 138 years ago. And we're still today having to deal with the same Neanderthal attitude and approach to race as we did all that time ago. It's 2024. Even though we're being subjected to multiple horrendous issues today, just think about how bad it must have been for those black pioneers of yesteryear. They never even got the pretend repulsion. Let's jump into the timeline closer to the here and now with incidents in Europe. And although it pains me, due to the number of incidents, I'm unable to drill down even deeper into the subject. To begin, I'm going to reference two high-profile games that happened in Europe in the last 12 months. The first of which happened on May the 21st, 2023, between Valencia and Real Madrid. Diego Lopez struck in the first half to give Valencia a precious 1-0 win over the rivals Real Madrid. But the game had an ugly end where Vinicius Jr. was sent off via a second yellow card. The card followed an unpleasant incident by the players, where Vinicius Jr. faced racial abuse from the stands. Racial abuse where the officials took no real action. Ancelotti, the Real Madrid coach, had this to say about it. Valencia claimed that their fans were saying tonto, which means silly, instead of mono, which means monkey. After the statement, Valencia insisted that Ancelotti apologised. Now that's what I call tonto. The outcome: 3 people were fined €5,000 and banned from sports venues for 12 months for making racist gestures towards them. The VAR referee in the game was Iglesias Villanueva, and he was later fired for only showing pictures of Vinny Jr. and not showing the referee pictures of Hugo Duro actually choking him. After the event, Vinicius Jr. was subjected to more racist abuse through hanging banners and burning black effigies of Vinicius Jr. in a number 20 shirt. I think the fine of the VAR official says it all. However, what was the follow-up to the incident? And what was done by the footballing authorities? A few people were banned and fined, but what European football and governing structure actually changed after the initial outrage? Ah well. Remember the old saying, yesterday's news is tomorrow's fish and chip paper. Now, apart from that being a health risk, in this day and age, with everything being digitalised and thrust onto social media, it's a lot quicker than that. The next big thing is just a click away. Today's news is today's recycle bin.
I remember I was 12 years old and the teacher wheeled a television set into the classroom. You remember these days? And she turned it on to one of 3 channels. And she said, class, the space shuttle is taking off and we're all gonna watch it take off. Man, that shit was going great for like 3 to 5 minutes. That's right, you remember, it fucking exploded. Right on television, everybody on board, dead, immediately presumed dead. It was so bad, the teacher looked at all the kids and was like, you can go home. It's a goddamn national tragedy. My point is, for a guy your age wouldn't even know the pain because in your generation, it's like the space shuttle blows up every fucking day. How can you care about anything when you know every goddamn thing?
Case in point. On January the 20th, 2024, AC Milan withdrew from the field against Udinese after continual abuse of their goalkeeper, Mike Maignan, by the home fans. Milan returned to the field a short time after to complete the fixture. And of course, then straight after the game, we were met with a standard outpouring of disgust from the governing bodies and the media outlets. FIFA President Gianni Infantino called for the implementation of an automatic forfeit of the game for teams whose fans cause for the abandonment of a game due to racist behaviour. That's all well and good, Gianni, but as FIFA President, isn't it your job to implement these reforms? You are just another official, playing it lip service in a long history of officials just playing it lip service. We already know that money dictates what football does. So the costs of multiple abandonments of football games to both the fans and the powers that be will negatively dictate the outcome of those talks. So who are they trying to kid? An incoherent load of old tosh. Did you believe anything that he said? It's just a ridiculous plan delivered as an afterthought. Point of interest. Did you know in 2023, after the Vinicius Jr. incident, FIFA had to re-establish their anti-racism task force? Now, I say re-establish because that same task force in 2016 was disbanded with the claim that it had completely fulfilled its temporary mission. Completely fulfilled its temporary mission. Temporary.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Whenever asked in another life what job I'd like to do, I've always come back with the witty response, I would like to be a meteorologist. Because I see it as a meteorologist gets out of bed, opens the curtains, looks what the weather's like, reports it out, then goes back to bed. However, since then, I've changed my mind. I want to be FIFA president. Now let's not look at these issues just happening in Spain, Italy and other European countries, because they're just as bad on these home shores. On the 20th of January 2024, in the EFL, during the Coventry City 2-1 win at Sheffield Wednesday, play was temporarily stopped after Coventry midfielder Casey Palmer reported monkey gestures directed at him by the crowd. On the 3rd of February 2024, there were further investigations into allegations by Birmingham City junior Bakuno he was being racially abused during their 1-0 Midlands derby defeat against West Brom at the Hawthorns. If we go back a little further, who can remember the high-profile racist abuse by England fans over social media during the European Championships in 2020? Now, what became of that? I'll tell you what happened. After widespread condemnation by the Football Association, followed by England manager Gareth Southgate, and the then Prime Minister, the trustworthy Boris Johnson, 24 hours later, after the protocols had passed for these racist issues, it was normal services are resumed. Big media companies also play lip service with their diversity, equity and inclusion strategies. They're supposed to be supporting different groups of individuals, including abilities, religions, races, sexual orientation, genders and ethnicities. Where does race and ethnicity actually sit here? Who's it actually benefiting? For me, race and ethnicity issues are at the very bottom of the DEI strategy. And all the issues of equality and inclusion that affect people, shall we say, of non-colour being at the forefront. In 2021, Crystal Palace's Wilfried Zaha took a stand, pardon the pun, against the Premier League's pre-match demonstration against racism to become the first Premier League player to not take the knee. Zaha stated there is no right or wrong decision. But for me, personally, I feel kneeling just becomes part of the pre-match routine, and at the moment it doesn't matter whether we kneel or we stand, some of us still continue to receive abuse. EFL sides such as Bournemouth, Derby, Millwall and Brentford also stopped kneeling before games, saying the routine had become more of a ritual or hollow gesture rather than a huge statement. At the time, Zaha came under some huge scrutiny. But in hindsight, was he actually wrong? At the start of the 2022-2023 season, the Premier League players decided they would no longer take the knee before every match, preferring instead to perform anti-racism gestures at specific high-profile moments throughout the season. We need serious people with real solutions, because after 138 years of this, we're fed up of still being in the transactional part of this and playing a lip service to the masses. When do we get to the transformational part? Now, the question of walking off the pitch, should they or shouldn't they? Well, initially, if you would have asked me this a few years ago, I would have said no, they shouldn't. And I'll tell you why. One, I felt we needed to show that racism couldn't win. And how we'd achieve this is we'd come together as a group or a society on the subject. Two, because we shouldn't have to. On December the 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks was arrested for not giving up her seat on a bus. Should similar tactics be needed 69 years later? And three, it affects far more of the innocent than it does the guilty in regards to the fans and the financial and mental losses that they will incur. However, some time ago, my opinion changed, as the governing bodies, the officials and the media have allowed this to continue. My utopian outlook has eroded with age, and the idealistic has been replaced by the realistic. Action is needed right now. See, the problem is, it's not just the racist fans. The problem is the governing bodies, the executives, the officials and the media not doing anything for decades. Ex-footballer Ian Wright stole my line, and there's no way I can improve on what he said. There is no more slogans, no more campaigns, and no more conversations to be had. Enough. We need to affect the money because that's all they understand. That's why Gianni Infantino's suggestion, because it's not a plan, was a non-starter for the powers that be. And we all knew it the moment it left his mouth. Here's my 2 pence. How about these 2 suggestions for a start? Stewards serve a purpose in the stands, mostly just directing traffic. So how about the introduction of an equalities officer? Every professional ground must have them, and they'd be hired on a basis of per capita of your club. So let's say, for example, 1 per 1,000. Your club's got a 1,000-seater stadium, 1. Your club's got a 20,000-seater stadium, 20. And a 40,000-seater stadium, 40, etc, etc, etc. Added to the cameras in the ground, we could point out the individuals and swiftly remove them from the ground. That'd work, and that cost would be negligible. You could even cost it into the sustainability budgets if needed. Here's another one. How about ending the era of the ultras? They're just fans who think they're better than everybody else, and because of that, they think they can do whatever they like and they're beyond reproach. Can we really class these 1960s political groups as a serious and acceptable form of fan culture? It seems to me it's just an outdated excuse to be in a gang for hooligans, institutionalised racists and violence. The atmosphere they proclaim to add is negative and dated. Anyway, I've got my slogan. Any more monkey noise? Off with the boys. That's my opinion. What's yours? Like, subscribe, share, tell your friends. We go again. I'm Man in the Spare Room.